Hi guys, hello. Welcome to the 12th session on Unix shell scripting, that is scripting exclusively for DBS. So in this, we are in the 12th session as I said, and we are into the 6th chapter where, the first part of this 6th chapter we are going to cover three important topics, that is signals, traps, and also functions. So we are going to see what is this, but before I start these three topics, apart from functions, whatever I'm going to discuss about signals and traps, these two are very specific to the Unix kernel. You know how the Unix kernel basically sends a signal to terminate a running script or a running process at the background. And similarly, in case, if you want to do a clear exit from a program, how does, the Unix shell, that is kernel, will basically clean the user process from their memory is what we are going to see in terms of signals and traps. So trapping is something that is 6.2, the chapter, subtopic number is 6.2, and in this trapping is something that is purely based on what type of signal you wanted to capture. So that is the reason the first thing that you will have to understand is what is a signal with respect to the Unix kernel and what does it actually explains you whenever you are running a background script or whenever you are running a tool or whenever you are running a process. What is a signal and what are the different signals that a process which is running in the memory can experience from the kernel is what we have to see. Definitely, I would say you must have mostly used a very most oftenly used command called kill-9, right? So what is kill-9 exactly means with respect to the operating system is what we have to know. Whether kill-9 is the only option, why -9? Do we have -8? Do we have -7? Or something like this? If you have ever thought, then definitely that's what will give you a route to understand signals. So as I said, these the basics of for the introduction for what is signal exactly. Let me actually read out what is this. Finding the signal man page. But this is not the definition of a signal, but the signals is something that I will be explaining you here. But to understand what are the different kinds of signals that we have got on the system, you can basically go and do a man-k signal followed by grep list. This will give you the list of signals that operating system can understand. So that's the reason, let me first of all show you the list of signals that operating system kernel can understand, and then we will be discussing with that list what is the meaning of exactly the word called signal. So now let me connect to my system as we do in every session. So I would do it here, and then I would just say man-k signal and then grep signal is something here and then grep list. Now there is nothing here, so I would just say man signal. Let me actually show you something different than that. Okay, so let me go to the end of this list, and then I don't have anything here. Alright, alarm, kill. Okay, let me actually show you differently here. So Q, man, kill. So let me go to the end of, I'm looking out for a file which will actually help you to show what are the different types of signals that the operating system kernel can understand. So I'm trying to find it. So give me 1 minute to find it out. So page up, page up, page up. Where is this file? Okay, so this is not the one. So let me actually show you something else. And now man signal, and in here let me again verify whether I have some file here from where it will basically call the signals. Okay, so this is what I was speaking about. These are the signals. Every signal is basically prefixed with SIG, and then you have ILL, EGV, SEGVE, and ILL and INT and FPE. Going forward, we will be having all these things. But to show you that list, I am trying to search for that file. So let me show you. Let me try something else like this. Kill-L. Yeah, this is what will give you. See how many signals do we have? Signal hub, abort, SEGV, and STT, FLT, something like this. And these are the, if you just look at this switch, there are approximately 62 list of signals that you can pass on top of a process that is running on the operating system. Each and every signal has got a specific meaning, and every signal that it basically does on or executes on top of the process which is running in the Unix memory, definitely that is taken action as the reaction by the kernel. That means if the user is trying to give an exit from a web console, definitely whatever background process it is there, it has to basically remove it from the memory. And that your Oracle database software, if it is having the control on top of that memory, Oracle software will clean that. In case if you have a bash script running and if the bash has to exit from the memory, then definitely kernel has to pass in a signal to the the script has to pass a signal to the operating system saying that yes, user has given exit from this particular script. Now you go and clean up the process inside the memory and free up those semaphores. This is what called as signal. Signal is something that bash script will basically give to the kernel, so that kernel will go and take an action based on what signal it receives. So if you are saying that user has given a control C, for example, so as soon as I give control C, your bash script should in turn go and tell the kernel saying that user wanted this particular script to be terminated abruptly. That means now kernel will go and kill the background process at the back end, isn't it? That's what a very simple meaning of control C. So whenever you give control C, there is a signal which is passed by your script or by your terminal to your operating system kernel, and then operating system kernel will basically send appropriate message to the system, and then it will take an action appropriately according to the signal that you basically pass. So now understanding all the signals from 1 to 64 is definitely not meaningful for us at the moment, but we are going to see what are the very oftenly used signals that we might have already used, and what is the meaning of it is what we will see that now. So now can you actually think about something with this hint? Whenever you say kill-9, do you know what is happening exactly? See here, what is the 9th one in the kill signals? You are saying that signal kill it. So whenever you use a command called kill, and then if you pass -9, basically this is the message that is passed to your kernel, that is sig kill. So as soon as you say sig kill, whatever background process you will pass in, that background process will be terminated, that will be killed actually. That is the reason kill-9 is the command exactly to kill the background process or to kill any process running in the background. Instead, if you pass kill-1, what is that it does? Sig hub. Do you know what is this? No, right? And if you pass kill-2, sig int. Int is something that is nothing but this is the signal whenever you pass control C. Please remember, because I don't know what is this sig hub, but still I'm telling you. In case if you say control C on your keyboard, the signal that is passed to the kernel is sig int, that is number 2. So if you say kill-2 and the background process or whatever it is, basically you are performing control C. And now when you are saying kill-9, you are completely terminating the signal, and the signal that is passed to the operating system is sig kill. So this is one of the examples that will tell you why the reason kill-9 but not any other number or numeric. Now you would be able to answer any of the interview questions why kill-9, isn't it? I think that makes sense to you now. And similarly, in case, because this is one of the terminal which is connected to the system, right? So in case if you want to say this terminal to be cleaned up, yes, sigterm. That means whenever terminal wants to be closed, definitely the request that or the signal that is passed to the kernel is with the help of sigterm, that is on top of the terminal. And if the terminal has got some child process or it can be anything, chld. This is to stop. So I'm just reading out few things which I know, but basically I'm not sure what is completely the list of 64 signals is, but I only know the most frequently used signals that I basically might have been used in my experience. That's it. So now let me come back to this. Now you would have understood what is what is actually a signal, and how does signal will be basically used by the kernel to take appropriate action, right? Now if you see, in the absence of any traps, we will come back to this. What is traps? Consider that there is no trapping at the moment. An interactive bash shell ignores sigterm and sigquit. Whenever there is a bash shell which is running in an interactive mode, sigterm, that is terminal based signals, and quit based signals are basically ignored, and sigint is caught and handled. And if job control is active, sigttin, sigttou and sigtstp are also ignored. That means sigt is nothing but again on top of a terminal, and t, this is also on top of a terminal, and in case if you want to stop the terminal, that is what is also ignored. What does that means? As I tell you, whenever your shell script is running on background, definitely you cannot quit out of the terminal. And when the shell script is active, your shell script can actually accept your Control C button. So whenever script is active, if you say Control C, definitely it will quit the script, right? That's what this statement means. And commands that are run as the result of the command substitution also ignore these signals when keyboard generated. That means whenever you say Control C from the keyboard, definitely at the background, signal called int is basically passed to the kernel and it is terminated. Now, without actually confusing you with this, let me actually tell you the most frequent standard keyboard combinations that we use. Basically we use Control C. This is to interrupt the signal, and that's the reason it is sigint, and this is to interrupt the job running in the foreground. So that's the reason whenever you see something interactive, only then you can use Control C, right? If there is a background process which is running at the background, can you use Control C for that particular specific background process? Definitely you cannot do it. Only for something you got an interactive console, you can use Control C, right? Now, Control Y is something that can be used. The delayed suspend character causes the running process to be stopped when attempts to read the input from the terminal. Control is returned to the shell. The user can foreground, background or kill the process. Delayed suspend is only available on operating systems supporting this feature. So Control Y is something to delay suspend character. That means if you want to delay some input that is passed by the user to the bash script, then definitely Control Y is something that you basically use. And if you have probably used wherever Control C doesn't work, you must have also tried Control Z. Control Z is to stop. So this is the suspend signal, sends a sigtstp to a running program, thus stopping it and returning the control to the shell. So wherever Control C doesn't work, you must have probably used Control Z, and the meaning is to suspend it, and Control C is to interrupt the signal completely. So these are the basic standard signals that you would have used so far. And how do you basically use these signals with kill is what I have just given you. Whenever you grep the background process, then you kill the commands using kill hyphen what is the signal that it has to pass from the list that I have shown you on the screen. Alright, so now let me show you here. What is trap? Now it is very, very important to understand what is trap. As you see here, there might be situations when you don't want users of your scripts to exit untimely using keyboard abort sequences. For example, because input has been provided or cleanup has to be done, the trap statement is the one that catches these sequences and can be programmed to execute a list of commands upon catching those signals. If you did not understand this particular paragraph in detail, I will make it possible now. For example, you are running a script, very important script, and somewhere user has given, in the process of running the script, you might have created many temporary variables, many temporary files on the operating system, which you always thought to clean up at the end of the script. Alright, so something like this, you must have created when the script has been started, you must have created a temporary file called temp.txt, and temp2.txt, temp3.txt for your functionality purposes. But after the end of the script, you might have actually included cleaning up those temporary files also. But if somebody is giving control C in between the flow of the complete script, will the script go to the end of the line in the script? No. That means all the temporary files that were created in the beginning of the script flow will not be cleaned at the end. Now, how can you make sure that whenever user exits, like using control C from the tool, how can you make sure that these things are also cleaned? What do you mean by these things? The temporary files which you have created in the beginnings are also cleaned. That is one thing that you can do. Or another thing that you can do is you can stop the user to use control C. So as soon as he says control C, whenever he wants to exit from the tool, you can just say you cannot use control C. Or you can say that you can also write something like this, that not to perform anything when somebody uses control C. This is what you can do, and to do this, trap is the command that you have to use. So trap is a command, something that you can use it within the script in case if you want to take the control on top of the signals that are passed from the shell to the kernel. So before the signals are passed from the shell to the kernel, those commands or the signals has to bypass this trap. As I said, whenever this shell is basically running, when the shell is interactive, as soon as you say control C command has to first pass through the bash shell, and then bash shell has to pass it to the kernel. But now when you use trap, as soon as the signal is received by the bash, first that bash will send that signal to the trap here. So if the signal whatever received by the bash is there in this list, then it will perform this action first, and then based on what is this action, whether the command has to be carry forwarded or not is what it basically decides. But please make a thumb rule, whenever a signal that is listed in the trap in the bash script is given to the bash, it definitely doesn't carry forward that particular signal to the kernel. For example, I wanted to disable control C. That means if I say here sig int, that means interrupt. If I say sig int here in this list, as soon as I say control C signal is taken by the trap, but that control C signal is not passed to the, it is not passed to the kernel. So whatever signals list that you give here, whenever such signals are basically received by the bash script, those signals are not carry forwarded to the kernel anymore. And why is that we are using trap is, as soon as you see such signals received by the bash, you can basically perform some reactions based on the requirement. So in the example that I have shown earlier, or that I have discussed earlier, that means in case if you have created temporary variables and temporary scripts in the beginning of the file, and if somebody is using control C, not only you allow the user to exit from the terminal, you should also clean up your temporary files and variables, right? So cleaning up those temporary files and variables is what you can give as a list of commands here as soon as somebody gives sig int, that is sig int. Alright, so to explain this very much better, I have some activity for you which will help you to get this out. So before this, let me actually give you a direct example that will make a lot of sense to you. See here, before this is typed, I will be writing up my own script so that it makes sense to you. Vi without trap.sh. So now if I start this, let me actually write a very simple script. I would say this and then say echo -n, what is your name? A simple script like this, and then I would say read name, and as soon as somebody gives name, then again echo your name is $name. That's it, and then clean it up. That is normal exit. Now if I run this script, definitely it is asking my name. If I say my name, it is saying that your name is this one. That's fine. But now if I again run this script without giving my name, if I say control C, see, the program has been terminated. Now if I want a user not to terminate the program like this with Control C, I can again do this. So without, what is that I do? First, as soon as I define the shell, I would just say trap, and then I would write echo, you are not allowed to use Control C. And now this is what it has to execute whenever it sees sig int. That means whenever somebody says Control C, it should not pass this Control C to the kernel, but instead it has to execute this command. This is what I have given. So now I will write quit. Now I will do this for you, and so that you can use it. Now if I say bash followed by this script, it is asking my name. Now if I say Control C, see, it is not exiting from the terminal. Instead, it is saying you are not allowed to use Control C. Why? Because in the trap, the list of commands that it has to execute, as soon as it receives Control C in the process of executing this shell, is to echo. That's what I gave. That's the reason it is only echoing this command, and it has returned to this, what is your name console. That's it. So it is not exiting from that point. Now if I say Pawan, again it is showing that your name is Pawan. This is how you can basically control people not to use Control C in the process flow. Or you can do it differently also, like this. In case if you wanted nothing to be displayed on the screen whenever somebody uses Control C, that means they don't want to, they cannot actually use Control C at all. Instead of typing anything, just leave it with double quotes like this. If somebody does it like that, see what happens. Bash. Now if I say Control C, nothing happens. Control C, nothing happens. Nothing happens. It doesn't come out of the console at all, because I did not say what should be the reaction as soon as somebody gives Control C, right? Now as soon as I type something and come out, it will give me only that one as the output. I hope now you understood what is trap and what is signal. Without understanding the list of signals and the purpose of those signals, you cannot use those signals in the trap list. Okay, so this will come with the experience and with the necessity for you. So because I have come through these things whenever I had a tool which was interactive, and people used to completely exit from the tool without quitting it cleanly. So when I observed this carefully, I saw my temporary location has been filling up so much. Then I did not understand why I was, why the temporary files are not getting cleaned up, though I have used a function to clean up all the temporary variables at the end of the script. That's where I have come up with this idea to actually trap people using Control C. Instead, if they want to quit out from the script or the tool, I have clearly given an option to type Q. So when somebody types Q, automatically I have a function which will clean up all the temporary files and variables. That is how I made sure that nobody can come out of the terminal just by using Control C or Control Y or Control C. Alright, so this is one of the best examples that I can show you, purpose of signals and purpose of trap. And please remember, in this double quotes, you can also give set of the commands to execute, or you can give the name of the function that has to be executed, or you can say nothing to get executed when you see this. Alright, so that will basically help you, to do the actions as per your requirement. Alright, so let us come back to the discussion again. The last topic is functions. So functions has got no good, relation with the two topics that we have discussed so far, that is signals and traps. But instead, functions are very, very important for us to use throughout the scripting, because when do we basically use functions in any language that you have learned so far? It can be anything. You can also call your C language a very basic C language. Why did we use function? Function is something that we used when we have a repetitive jobs to be performed, right? In case if we have a set of program to be executed at one stage of the script, and if you have the same set of program to be executed with a different values in the next phase of the script, then definitely you would have used function. A very simple example, if I have to tell you, for example, you wanted to add two numeric values, and if you wanted to see the result of it, and those two numeric values are 10 and 20 at first stage of the script, and the same thing is 30 and 40 in the next stage of script. what is that you would have done? You would have done, or you would have created a function which will accept two variables in it, and every time whatever might be the value of those two variables, it will basically perform an addition and give you the output. Now by doing this, what happened? You are creating function only once, but you are calling it twice. When you called it once, you gave the values to be added as 10 and 20. When you called it second time, you gave the values as 30 and 40. This is how functions will basically reduce the recursive jobs that has to be performed in case if you have repetitive jobs, but if that has to return a value for you, and if it is repetitive, and if you want to call it whenever you need it, that's where the functions are basically used. And user defined functions are very, very important in the shell scripting, because you might get a necessity of doing the same set of programs again and again, whenever it has to be repetitive, and whenever it is required in the phase of executing the script. That's the reason by default whatever methodologies I prefer basically in my scripting skills is, though it is repetitive or not, I basically define set of programs to be executed in a function and then call the function. Instead of writing those set of lines directly on the shell, directly to be executed one after the other, instead I will define that in the function and then I'll call that function, so that it is easy for me to understand what is happening, and if there is any modification that has to be performed, I can go and edit the function directly. So now let me actually explain you what happens here. So let me read this out. So whatever I have explained so far, that should make sense when I am reading this out. So shell functions are a way to group commands for later executions using a single name for this group or a routine. So you can give a one name and you can execute it later any number of times as well. So the name of the routine must be unique within the shell or script. That means if you have two scripts, the same function can be existing in script 1 and as well as script 2, but within the same script 1 you cannot have two functions with the same name. So when all the commands that make up a function are executed like regular commands. There is nothing different. Whatever you write inside the function, they are executed in a very similar fashion as your shell executes. There is no difference, but those commands will be executed only when the function is called. If the function is not called, whatever you write inside the function, those are never executed inside your shell. So when calling on a function on a simple command name, the list of commands associated with that function name is executed. A function is executed within the shell in which it has been declared. No new process is created to interpret the commands. So whenever you are calling a function inside the shell doesn't create a child process to execute that function. It is executed within the function itself. But only when you call, it will go and execute those set of commands. So special built-in commands are found before shell functions during command lookup. So the special built-ins are, break, continue, eval, this is not good, it is always dangerous, execute, exit, export, read only, return, set, shift, trap, unset. So these are the special built-in commands that are found before shell functions during command lookup. Alright, so what would be the syntax for the function? So whenever you define a function inside a shell, there are two ways that you can define. One, give function followed by the name of the function and then the set of commands in the flower braces, opening and closing. Or you can directly give the name of the function with open braces and close braces, and you give set of commands what has to be executed whenever somebody calls this function in a flower braces. So both will define a shell function, that is, this is the function name. The use of the built-in command function is optional. However, it is not used parentheses or indeed. So you basically use parentheses like this to define set of commands that has to be executed when somebody calls this function. So the commands listed between curly braces make up the body of the function. So this is what we call it as body of the function. These commands are executed when function is specified as the name of the command. The exit status is the status of the last command executed in this complete list of commands in the body. So consider in this body if you have 20 commands. So and after the end of the function, if you see, the exit status of this command, whether it is 0 or non-zero value, you are basically seeing the exit status of the last command that has been executed in this list. Remember that. And function can also accept the positional parameters, that is $1, $2, $3 or something like that. You can call a function, you can pass in first argument, second argument and third arguments also. And to display the functions, how do we do? Let me show you that. And to recycle the functions, in case if you have a functions that has to be recycled and cleaned up, definitely this is the one that you have to go and use it, and then it will clean up all the pre-existing functions with the same name so that it can recreate the functions in your shell. Alright, so now let us create a very simple function for you within the script, and then I'll call it, and then also I'll create a function on the command line and then I'll call it. So let me do that here. So I'm creating a, first of all, function.sh. In here I'm writing a simple script. What is that it is doing is, see, let me show you. I'm writing a function. Function starts from here and it ends here. And I'm calling the function name directly, saying that listDB, that's it. That means when the shell basically starts executing, it will come from here. It will not run this function at all until here. And after this listDB is found, then it will come back to the function and it will execute group of commands that has been given here. So in the if clause, what is it I'm doing here? See, what is it I'm doing? I'm going and finding whether /etc ORATAB file is there or not. If that is not there, then I'm just saying that Oracle database is not installed on this server. But in case if ORATAB has been executed, I mean if the file is existing, that is what this means, then go and read this ORATAB, grep everything out which is starting with hash, because I don't want to see the comments in this particular file. And then I have a field separator called colon. So divide each and every line into number of columns or fields with respect to the divider called colon, and then only print $1. And after printing $1, remove the empty lines in the output. Now with this, see the beauty, what is that you are gaining is, you are seeing, bash, you will be seeing the list of databases installed on this server. See the beauty of it. Now you cat this. What is that I have done in this is not a very big, it is not a, it is not something which is very tricky. What is that I said in the script? Let me show you. I said first cat ORATAB. Yes, I did it. And after that, grep everything out. Hyphen me is inverse, right? Everything starting with hash is what you remove it and show me the result. See, this is what the result. So there are empty lines and also there are lines with some content. And in here, I'm saying that use awk and use the field separator as colon. Whenever you see colon in each and every line, you have to divide that into number of fields, right? So this will be column number 1, this will be column number 2, and this will be column number 3. That's what it will do. And out of these 3 columns, I'm asking to print only column number 1. So now if you see, empty lines are also displayed, and also first column of these 2 lines are also displayed. Now out of this, I am just saying that also remove empty lines. To remove empty lines, cap and then $, that's it. So just say this, see, empty lines are also removed and you are seeing the list of databases here. And in case if /etc ORATAB file is not existing, for example, let me show you, move /etc ORATAB to /etc ORATAB dot bkp. Okay, I don't have permissions to do that, so let me do that here and then come back. Now if I say bash and then the script, that is what is the script name that we have given? So the script name that we gave was function.sh. Now you see it is saying that Oracle database is not installed on this server. Why? The logic of the program that I have written in the function is, first of all, it is finding if the file is existing. If it is existing, only then it is showing you the list of databases available on this server. If it is not, then it is clearly saying that Oracle database software is not available on this server. Simple and straightforward, isn't it? Now I am moving this back because we are done with it. I am running this back. Alright, so now I am coming back to the Oracle user, and now let me actually see if I have to create the function on the command line, can I also do that? Yes. Just create a function like this without any difference. So the function is created first of all now. So listDB function is available on the shell at the moment. Now if I say listDB at any given point of time, I'll be able to see the list of databases with the function that I have created here. This is another way of doing it. So functions can be created and used inside a bash shell and can also be created in your terminal also. In case if you want to see the list of functions that you have created on the terminal, the command is, as you guys know, so you can just say which followed by this one, listDB. It will show you where is listDB. So where is it? So it is not showing me listDB unless until it is this one. Okay. So let me show you another command. Yes, I have just tried one of the known commands. So that is nothing but declare -f. So as I have discussed earlier in the declare clause, let me actually scroll up and show you, then you will basically understand why did I use it earlier. So in the declare, I have also shown you -f. It uses function names only. That means in case if you wanted to see something about the functions, you have to use declare -f. Now if I say declare -f, I have seen all the list of functions which are available on the server at the moment. Out of them, listDB is one of the functions that I have created. I can also see that list here. Because the list is very big, in case if you know the function name and if you want to see what is the body of that function, you can just say declare -f listDB. It will only show you the body of the function called listDB that you have created in the shell. Please remember, this particular function that is created on the shell at the moment is temporary. As soon as you exit from the terminal and you re-enter in the terminal, this particular function will not be available. So let me show you with the another duplicate session with it. So append the file, so Oracle, and now if I say listDB, see, it is not available. That means it is cleaned up. So for every terminal, you can have terminal specific, whatever you create functions inside the terminal, those functions are only temporary for that particular terminal session. So if you say listDB here, it will still work, but on the new terminal, it doesn't work. Alright, so please remember that point. So this is all about this current chapter, that is 6th chapter for part 1. We have learned everything about signals. What is a signal? And everything about the trap. Trap is something that you can control the signals that is passed from your bash to the kernel. That's what we have seen. And we have also seen what is a function and how do we basically call a function. And one more thing that I wanted to show is how do we basically capture the arguments which are passed to the function. So let me do that. I would just say function or list db followed by this. I create a function like this, echo your first argument passed is $1. So if I have like this, now if I say list db followed by course, it will say that your first argument passed is course. So $1 will remain the same. So though we have used $1 earlier, I also wanted to make sure that even when you call a function, you can also pass in arguments to it. So after calling the function, if you pass argument number 1, it will become $1 inside the function. If you say $2, it will become $2 inside the function, something like this. Alright. So this is how you can play with the functions, arguments, display the functions, and do the recursive jobs with the help of the functions, etc., etc. So that's it for this session, and we will meet in the next session to actually see a very, very small topic called what are the shell features which you commonly find between Corn, Bash, normal Bourne shell, and then C shell or something like this. And also we will see what are the features which are different from each and every shell. That's it. So the next session is not basically about discussing something very much in detail. There is nothing very interesting, but this part of this chapter will basically give you the list of features which are common across all the shells. That means you can use those commands in any of the shells that you work on, and it will also give you the list of commands which are different in each and every shell. That means if you learn that on one shell, you might not use the same thing on the other shell. That's what differing shell features means, and this will give the common list of shell features. Alright, So I'll come up with this list in the next session. Stay tuned with me. Thank you guys. See you. Bye.